it's Elaine Clayman from the Elaine Clayman, Justine Bray team at Brown Harris Stevens, and I'm happy to share the screen once again with my daughter, Justine Bray. Just to give you a little background, I've been in the business for 34 years now, and Justine has been in the business for over 20 years, and I'm very fortunate to have the ability to work with my wonderful daughter. So I just spent more time looking at the rental market. She's sort of in charge of the brokers who are dealing with rentals too. And Justine, it seems that there's a lot more property on the market today. So can you talk a little bit about the market, the rental market, and COVID-19 and the impact that it's had on the market?
Absolutely, and thank you for having me. So more than 10,000 apartments have been listed for rent in Manhattan since June, which is a huge increase from this time last year. It's about 85% more inventory than you would have found this time last year.
No, that's pretty scary. So I think the impact is probably obvious, but just to make it crystal clear, we should probably talk about what's going on in the rental buildings and how owners are responding, how potential renters are responding to this new paradigm.
Yes, of course. So in an effort to fill those vacancies, there are landlords and rental buildings that are offering huge price drops. Some of the people that we had rented the apartments to last year are leaving. There are definitely fewer renters moving into the city, and especially the market that is the large apartments are dropping the fastest as we're finding. There's always a need for an apartment in the city, but the larger ones, the people who are in them are leaving for the suburbs for the most part.
So, Justine, in the very popular buildings that have had long waiting lists and lots of restrictions, can you tell us a little bit about what's happened since March in those buildings?
There's a lot of incentives right now by landlords and especially the rental buildings. The rental buildings are offering anywhere from 1 to 3 months of free rent, and in addition to the prices that have come down.
Well, it sounds like the buildings have emptied out based on what you said. Yeah, there are a number of people, owners and renters, who have simply moved out of the city, and I've heard 50% of the buildings are sometimes vacant. So I guess owners have to be more flexible today. It's definitely a renter's market. So what's going on with prices in light of this?
Well, I think that the standards for renting an apartment are still the same, but the vacancies have definitely put a damper on raising the rent. People are definitely not in the position to raise the rent on a rental right now, and to try and even keep an apartment rented by the tenant who's there, offering less rent, that they have an incentive to stay versus leave. But the restrictions for the apartments are definitely the same.
Okay, so the prices have clearly come down, and owners have to be competitive today. What exactly is the formula for renters?
We always look for 40 to 45 times the rent in annual income to carry the cost of the apartment. If we don't find that the tenant is able to qualify, we will then ask for an in-state guarantor.
So when you say 40 to 45%, can you just define that a little bit? What is that calculation? Is that based on their income?
Sure, absolutely. So somebody who's looking to rent an apartment for $2,000 a month, let's say, has to make at least $80,000. If they want something that's $2,500 a month, they'd have to earn at least $100,000. So it's every time you look at what the rental cost is for that month, you just times it by 40. And some landlords will ask for 45 times.
Well, okay. Yeah, it's very interesting because years ago when I started this business, it was 25.
Right.
So that's interesting. So if somebody wants to rent an apartment and they're unable to go through the standard the standard way of going to a rental building, for example, they don't meet that formula, then what might you suggest that they do in order to secure an apartment in New York?
Sure. Well, they can either look for a roommate, and it would be the combined income. And then we would likely still want a guarantor who would guarantee, since there are roommates and independently they wouldn't be able to afford it, but together they do. And we always look for somebody who is an in-state guarantor who does qualify to meet that 40 to 45 times the rent.
Right, yeah. And I think I've also seen cases where if somebody wants to rent an apartment and they can't get it through the normal channels, they may go to a direct owner and strike a deal there, or offer to pay a significant amount, maybe a year up front, to avoid the formula. So there's, I always believe if there's a problem, there's a solution. Um, so it's the rental market. Because the prices have come down, it seems like it's a little bit easier for people to qualify based on what you said, where if somebody would have had to pay, let's say, $5,000 for an apartment, and you had to times that 5,000 times 40, now if that apartment's $4,000 a month, then it probably makes it easier for them to qualify. It's very useful to have that formula, Justine. Okay, Justine, thank you so much for enlightening all of us on the rental market, and people should certainly feel free to call us. And if you have something you want to rent or sell, please reach out to me at 212-906-9353 or Justine at 212-906-9253, and we will be more than happy to help you. Thanks for tuning in.